if I came out to the press properly, the mainstream press, and said I wasn't hired because I'm a white person, okay, maybe certain newspapers we can think of might run with that story, but it wouldn't be the look that I want. Do you know what I mean? If you start saying, hey, I'm not hired because I'm a white man, can you see what I'm thinking when I think what the look that is for me? What that would look like?
Well, I just feel like, you know, after knowing you for less than 20 minutes, I just feel like you shouldn't let that be an established narrative until you actually know that that's the case.
Well, over about 7 years, I spoke to about 50 production companies, and every one of them, they go straight to the BBC and Channel 4, said about halfway through the chat, they said, we do have to talk about something a bit uncomfortable. And I said after a while, I said, I know what it is already. And they said, well, we would not be able to put you forward. Now, the thing is, the evidence, there are 1 or 2 emails, right, who actually put it in words, but I don't want to get those people in trouble. Because I understand their pressures.
I don't want to gaslight you either, right? So I don't want to sit here and be like, no, maybe you're imagining it, right? Because that's not nice either. The proof is
in the stats.
But and the reality is, in that situation, yeah, like that is an example of somebody being hired because, you know, of their race. I'm here, and one of the main reasons I came on this podcast is to say that is not every single example. And I would argue that actually meritocracy now includes many people from different backgrounds being the best for the job.
Okay,
right?
so another stat, just to bear out my point then, is that 3% of the UK population are black, and 8.1% of TV characters on screen are black. So if this is meritocracy and it's nothing to do with quotas and trying to push people up, is the assumption then that black people are just 2.5 times better at acting, newsreading, and those kinds of things?
Maybe.
Really?
I mean...
So because for years...
Why not?
But for years when it was that were white people, there were more white people per person of the population, saying something like that would be considered racist.
Saying something like what?
White people are just better at TV presenting and news presenting and stuff.
Well, when I mean, white people have been dominant for hundreds of years, right?
Sure.
So that has been the assumption that.
But a wrong assumption. I mean, these are the assumptions that like Hitler made, that the white Ubermensch were better than anyone else, and we came to realize as society.
I'm not sitting here saying black people are better than anybody else. I'm just saying.
What explains it? The 2.5 times more likely to be on TV in the UK.
I mean, there's a variety of reasons, but I don't think we should sit here and say because there's a disproportionate amount of black people on TV that the only reason for that is DEI.
So like what could be another reason?
Talent.
So black people are more talented than white.
Preference. But
where does that preference come from if not a pressure for DEI?
But again, we go back to it. What pressure for DEI? What I mean, does the film industry I'm talking about my industry, and I'm saying the assumption that I'm in the job because I'm a black woman and tick a box is constantly leveled at me despite how qualified I am for the job. Yeah. So, and I'm saying there is no DEI tick box.
But there is. They all use them. That's what Diamond Diversity is. It's to keep the TV channels in check.
It's just false.
They have to have a certain number of ethnic minorities.
Where is this coming from?
Well, I first heard it when I was told I can't be on TV.
You did.
But loads of people have been told that. You just don't know who they are because they've never been on TV.
You have to talk about your own experience. I have to talk about my own experience.
I'm talking about facts. I'm talking about 2.5 times.
What you've done is you've highlighted the amount of people in an industry
on screen disproportionate
to the
yes.
Yeah. And you're attributing that to DEI policies.
I think the reason that
exists.
Forgive me if I'm wrong. I think one of the reasons that you're resistant to this is because of the assumption that you're there, specifically you.
Yeah, and it's a really racist assumption.
You are extremely talented, and it seems like you are there based on talent.
Right.
However, some black people are there not necessarily because of talent, and the proof of that is the percentages. Unless black people are just better.
But some some white people have been given opportunities without
20, 30 years ago, yes.
I mean, let's talk about. Well, no, you can't say that.
But I can because of the stats. White men are now the least likely to get a job on screen on TV based on the figures. There are more of them in general because the population, there are far more white people, right? But there are fewer on TV per person of the population.
Right.
So like 3% of black people, let's say, of the population, 8.5% on TV. So white people, let's say it's 40% in the population, there's like 35% on TV. I'm not someone sitting there going, this is a problem. There are too many black people on TV. Mm-hmm. Who cares, right? Mm-hmm. The problem is the number of white people who are then individuals. And let's not think of them as like groups, because every person is an individual. Every black person, every white person, every whatever other ethnic minority, they're all individual people. And it was, as I say, it was the hardest thing I've ever gone through. Was being told, because you're white, you can't have this job. So many people are being told that. And I think there are bigger problems.
When you say so many people have been told that, you have to qualify that.
I qualify it with the stats. How could it be?
But those stats don't explain that so many people have been told that. You're just saying, how could it be?
How can it be that there are more than there are 2.5 times the number of black people on TV than the general population if certain white people are not given jobs unless black people are just better?
But there's certain industries that one type is more dominant than the other. You look at basketball, it's predominantly black because black people are really good at basketball. You look at, I don't know, I'm thinking chess. I mean, chess, I love chess, but there's not many black women that are very good at chess. I don't know.
But these are measurable competitions.
No, but what I'm saying is that I accept if there's a predominance of white men in chess, unless there's contrary evidence, I'm just going to assume that there's lots of talented white men in chess. In the same way, now in 2024, you have a really nice, diverse slate of people playing football.
So maybe white people are just better at being in boardrooms in football. Why do we need to get more black people into there?
That's not the case though, because we know there's a disproportionate amount of people who can be in the boardroom who are not.
How do we know that?
Because you have to look at the opportunities. You have to look at the amount of people who say, and again, there's evidence that actually there are people who are looking for those opportunities who have not even been considered. The recruitment policies, I talk about recruitment policies all the time, and I say, well, if we just keep recycling the same people, right? How do we know that the best person out there hasn't been hired for you haven't spoken to the best person possible for the job, right? So when I was in a position where I had to build a football team from scratch, I had to effectively bring in 25 players and a coaching group. I had a network of ready-made people, right? But I said, no, I'm going to deliberately go broader so that I can see 5 of the best players in each position, hundreds of coaches from many different backgrounds, men and women, different languages that I can pick from. So when I land on who I think is the best candidate, I've deliberately made sure that I've seen a diverse range of candidates.
Sure. Okay.
That doesn't happen. That doesn't happen in boardrooms. That process doesn't happen, right? We talked about meritocracy in sport. Now, again, in sport, it's sometimes very measurable, right? Like if me and you were at the same starting point of a race and I beat you in the race, I'm better than you, and vice versa, right?
Significantly.
I think I would.
Yeah.
So it's very easy to say, okay, that person's the best for that job or won that race.
I beat you for a header.
But the reality is that, you would beat me for a header. Yeah. But the reality is that fairness, that process does not exist. But now you're telling me of an example where you feel that you were unfairly treated because you're a white man. And I completely accept that, right? But, and the reality is that experience that you faced is very much the case for many people who are not white, right? So, this...
I don't think it is anymore. I think it was 20, 30 years ago. So I have sympathy for those people and the difficulties they face. And I think it's flipped because I don't think we're very good at getting things just right.
But do you not feel like this? Yeah, I think there's an element of, you know, the world, the world was here, right? Where it was, you know, white male privilege.
Sure.
That was it. Patriarchy. And now the pendulum has swung where now we're in the UK, certainly, we're in a much more diverse place.
Yeah.
Right.
And a better place unless you're a white man.
Well, but I don't agree with that because I think you're making assumptions from those stats. And I think that we're still in a place where white men are in very, very privileged positions. I even look at just my mentors. Like I have amazing white male mentors who are still very dominant in their industries.
Yeah. That was a different generation. They're your older mentors.
I mean, even if you look at now, and again, I only want to talk about my own industry because that's where I have lived experience. If you look at broadcasting now in men's football, 9 times out of 10, the show that you're watching will have men. It's likely to have at least one white man.
Okay. Well, as it should. I mean, it's like 80%.
I'm not even saying, when I see that on the TV now, I don't get remotely upset about it. If I see Gary Neville, Roy Keane, and I'm trying to think of, you know, Mark Chapman is the host.
Irish as a minority? No, I'm joking. It was back in the day, Roy Keane.
Do you know what I mean? If I see 3 white men on a panel and a white host, I don't get triggered by that because at the end of the day, we're in men's football and those are the best people that the producer has decided to put on that particular show. Right?
Sure.
I'm just happy that I get picked sometimes to be on that show.
Yeah.
Right? But for anyone that sits there and says, well, you know, white men are getting pushed out of football, that's not the case because the majority of shows you still watch are all men with maybe one female host, and white men are very much dominant part of that. Right? So, and that's fine. I mean, I see that as changing because someone like me is now sitting next to a Roy Keane and sitting next to a Gary Neville, who I love, by the way, you know, amazing guys who have embraced the change, have embraced women coming into it. As long as I'm, you know, sitting there and giving my opinion, and none of these guys who I think are the best in the industry, whether it's Jamie Carragher, Gary Neville, Roy Keane, these guys, I've never had an experience where they've sat there and gone, she doesn't know what she's talking about. She's only here because she's black. Never. If anything, I get reinforced by the fact that, you know what you're talking about, right? So I think that we have to be very careful. There will always be experiences, as you've expressed to me today, that, listen, I think I was pushed out there because there's an agenda to bring in people from different backgrounds. But the reality is that agenda is coming from a place of trying to correct the fact that there has been a dominance for hundreds of years of white men.
I agree with that.
So we have to make a correction. But I'm saying
it's correcting it too far and it's getting it wrong. I mean, most of the travesties that have happened throughout history have come from societies trying to correct things.
Yeah.
The Soviet Union came about, the Bolsheviks came in because they'd had a ruling Tsar or like their king for a long time, and it was all of the elites, and they came in and they flipped it on its head. But then it just had the working class were then just the rulers then basically, and they just killed everyone.
So what would be your balanced sort of what's your sort of equality then? What do you?
I think you try and change education. This is something Coleman Hughes. Do you know Coleman Hughes? No. He's a American speaker. He's a person of color, as they say over there. Do we say that here now?
You know, person of color. I'm not offended by it.
We take American stuff, don't we?
Person of color, yeah.
That's the thing to say. But he speaks out against a lot of the DEI stuff. And he says he wants people to go into communities and you start from the bottom and you educate a population. And then because of the way capitalism works, I don't want to quote him too much. I guess it's me saying I don't want to get him wrong, but a meritocracy and people wanting to have the best people, that's the best way to do it. You need to educate racism out of a society from a young age for white, black people, for everyone and schools and trust the process of capitalism to gradually get the best people, as football is a good example of, at least on the pitch. rather than artificially manufacture in an authoritarian way by giving quotas. I know you're saying there aren't quotas, but
there are quotas.
There's loads of quotas.
I've seen in my industry, there isn't.
I can't speak for the football industry.
And the reason I really strongly resist that is because, as I said, people genuinely believe that ITV and TNT and Amazon and all the people that hire me are being forced to do so by some imaginary quota and some imaginary law that says any must be hired. It's completely false. It's entirely false.
I think two things can be true. One is that you are not being hired because of your skin color. You're being hired on talent. And the other is, overall as a country, people from minority backgrounds are being hired and placed above others. Even if they're already talented, they're getting picked above others because of diversity policies. I know people who have been forced to employ those policies.
Okay, so give me an example of a law that says, because there's laws that say you cannot be racist, right? And there's laws, the Equality Act protects certain people from discrimination.
Yes.
Precisely because the world has been built for white men to be here and everybody else beneath them, right? So the law, and you know, this is my background, so I know what I'm talking about. The law says, okay, because the world has been built with that supremacist view, certain people, we have to start protecting certain people, right? So that's women, that's Black people, that's or any sort of minority. Obviously, it's people with disabilities. Now it's trans people. So there's different categories of people that cannot be discriminated against based on the fact that they have historically been discriminated against.
I think that's really good.
Yeah, right. So that's the starting point, right? Now,
you're saying there's no law to have the quota.
So that's a law that protects people from discrimination, but there is no law that I understand in meritocratic industries like sport, like media, that says you have to hire those people.
No, but there are pacts within industries where channels pacts. They make pacts. I've seen them. I've seen them written. I've seen the audio industry pacts. I got to see that. Basically, the companies in the audio production community are told you either have this many. For example, if you have a panel and there is not at least one person of the three who is a minority, we will not work with you anymore. No one is allowed to work with that person. That goes on in audio, in TV, and I'm telling you, you're just going to have to trust me. Everyone who's in media who's listening to this will know that's true.
I mean, I would say that's, but even that, I would say, is just encouraging good practice.
Right.
Diversity
I agree.
is good practice.
It's a really positive thing, unless you think about it too much. Because what that means is a person who was qualified and would have had a really good opportunity to be at that, stand on that podium or to be able to give that speech, didn't get that job that time, and that person's going to feel bitter and upset, and they might not get the job the next time or the next time.
But again, you're making the assumption that the person that would have got that job that time has to be white. It's a false premise.
Well, because of sociocultural reasons that you've touched on, there aren't that many Black people who apply to be in the audio production industry. There just aren't that many, so it actually becomes a struggle for people to seek them out. But the one
Black person that applies. The one Black person that applies, why do you think that they can't possibly be the best?
I think percentage-wise, if there's only one who applies out of like 100, it's very unlikely that every time they would be the best of the 100. I think that people of different skin colours are of equal quality.
I hear you, but like I said to you, I'm an example of that 1%.
You're extremely rare.
I don't think I am.
You're rare by anyone's standards. Andrew, as a lawyer, professional footballer, that's not anyone's life.
Do you know why I resist that? Because I'm fortunate to have a lot of amazing friends from all different walks of life who are very much like me, 1%.
Lawyers, professional footballers for Chelsea in England.
Maybe not collectively, but
owns a football club.
No, but what I'm saying, listen, I appreciate genuinely now, genuinely. Like, I went to Brunel, and it's actually something I'm thinking about making a show about. My graduating class was incredible. Like, some of my peers who I literally sat down in lectures with back in 2008 when I graduated, one has gone on to be a special advisor to government.
Yeah.
Black guy. Another has gone on to literally, he's one of the go-to people in terms of making music videos in the music industry.
Yeah. So the talented people.
But I'm talking about maybe 5 or 6 now.
Very talented people.
Very talented,
Yeah.
excellent.
Well, they would
top
get the
of
jobs
their
anyway.
industry.
Why do we need the policies, is what I'm saying. The policies you say don't exist. I'm telling you they are pacts.
But once upon a time, they wouldn't get the jobs anyway.
But they would today. And that's been true the last 15 years. And good, because that's how capitalism works, I think. I'm not saying I love...
You seem upset about that.
No. That's what I wish were happening. I wish people could just get the jobs because they're talented enough. And I'm a very strong believer that people of different skin colors are of equal quality. You're absolutely right to point out sports being different, and cultures, of course. People in different cultures like different things. There are not many Jewish footballers, right? That's a physical thing and a cultural thing, I think.
Precisely.
Right? So I totally get that. But with regards to things like audio production, I don't think your skin color comes into it, right? I don't think we need to be saying... I just think the best people should get the job. And I think you agree with that. So why do we have the pacts?
I've never wanted to, because we have the pacts because human beings from the beginning of time have used racism to elevate certain people over another.
Well, then their businesses are going to suffer because they're not hiring the best people.
I disagree. I think if you hire a diverse group of people, you can make them the best.
I'm saying if they're racist, I say we don't need the pacts. And if you say to these people, oh, but you're racist, you're not hiring black people when you should have because they're qualified, that company's not going to do as well as their competitors, because their competitors will hire.
So you trust human beings to eliminate all of their bias and hundreds of years of established sexism, racism, established. You trust everybody without guidance, without best practice guidance to do that.
I trust people to look after their best interests, which is to make their company full of the most talented people they can find. And if they fail to do that, that's on them. Their company's not going to do well.
But the most talented people they can find, it's, you have to be so conscious of what that practice is. You have to be so conscious of recruitment.
Look, if I got a company and you come to me, lawyer, this, that, I don't even want to look at you. I just want to see the CV. You're hired. You're in. Okay.
No, and to that point, I think that's actually good practice to have. When I sat my legal exams, I was a number, right, in a room full of maybe a little bit like this, in a room full of people. I came out with a first class in law, right? So I know fundamentally. I didn't get a first class in law because I was a nice black girl from Birmingham.
Yes. But you're agreeing with me.
No. I'm saying that's best practice. But I'm saying that when you see, when the result of that practice comes out and there's 20 more black people that have proved that they're better in whatever field that is, don't question that.
I wouldn't.
But what you're doing is going... They're a beneficiary of a policy. No, maybe they're just the best.
Right. Well, then I agree with you. And let's all scrap the policies then. Let's go around to the audio production. Let's go to the TV, scrap the policies.
Andrew, you're being facetious now because I've just said you cannot scrap policies in a world that has been built on racism and supremacy. You can't do that. You can't.
But then you can't say to me not to. You're right. You can't say to me not to presume. You can't say to me.
I'm getting very animated here.
Yeah, please do throw the table. You can't say to me then not to assume. Unfortunately, that is it's unfair. But as long as DEI policies are in place, that is going to follow you unfairly around that you got the job because of your skin color. I'm saying scrap them. And if people are racist and they're not going to hire black people or women or whatever it is, let their businesses suffer because they're not hiring diversity. That's their issue. I agree with you that diversity is strong. It helps a company. I would be hiring diverse people. I think I've had more women on the show than men. I'm not even sure. I don't even know. It just happened naturally. But what I wouldn't want is someone in my ear saying, oh, but you've had 20% of this and 20% of that. So you need to not have that white guy now because you need to, that would be mad.